Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by co-host Manny Lagos. Manny, has your heart rate calmed down from Saturday afternoon at all yet?
I mean, I think the heart rate has calmed down. I don't think the surreal, insanity of what happened in the Twin Cities last weekend has at all become reality yet. And in some ways, I think it's lingering because there isn't a game this weekend. So it's almost like you're still just kind of absorbing what happened because you're not having to flip and switch and get ready for a game this weekend. So, as somebody who we have on this show today, it's kind of like this now then kind of moment for me still. Like I'm still basking in that just insanity.
Still pinching myself after everything that we saw on Saturday. And joining us, one of the many voices, one of the biggest voices of the afternoon, Cal Williams, MLS commentator, former Minnesota United commentator, obviously, friend, very good friend of the show. Callum, how you doing from sunny New York, I would imagine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good, Jonathan. How are you? Good morning.
Good. Where does that game, and we'll start, I think we'll flip the schedule, flip the running order of the show a little bit, because we're still talking about this game. That game will be talked about for a very, very long time in Minnesota. And I would imagine MLS history. Where does this game, Callum, rank for you on just any level that you want to put it? Craziness level, just overall drama level, whatever you want to rank it. Where does it rank for you?
Well, if you're allowing me to put it on a Minnesota United scale and perspective, it's got to be up there, right? I mean, I don't remember, and you chaps have been around the team far more than I have over the course of the last couple of years, but I don't remember a game that had that much drama within it to the point where it will be talked about for a very, very long time. And I remember actually mentioning this on the commentary, saying that it felt like an I was there type game where people will be talking about that game for a long, long time, especially if Minnesota continue on and find a way past San Diego and what have you and go on a run. I think it'll be viewed as one of the better games we've ever seen at Allianz Field. So to go into it with the tension that surrounded it anyway, because it was really nervy, wasn't it, in the stadium? You could tell just because of how the prior two games had gone, that there was a sense of nerves, there was anticipation. And so wrap it all up into this terrific Minnesota United parcel. It ended up being one of the most perfect nights I think people have probably ever had at Allianz Field. It would have been remembered for drama had Minnesota United have lost the game for sure, but just because Minnesota won it, I think it's going to go down as one of the nights that will be savoured for a very, very long time. And it was a pleasure to play a very small part in that as well. And it was just wonderful. It was Allianz was at its best. Again, you guys have been around the club more than I have recently, but it felt like the atmosphere was as good as it gets in North America. I will argue until I'm black and blue in the face with anybody with that. I'm fortunate enough to have seen just about every stadium in MLS now, and nothing compares to that night. The fans were impeccable. The Wonderwall was remarkable. The entertainment was flawless. It was just one of those nights where just about everything was perfect from a Minnesota United perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Manny, you obviously have a longer history than just the MLS era. So I guess including all of the history that you have with this club, where does Saturday night rank for you? And obviously there's title games in there and everything. So
no, I know.
There's a lot to encompass there.
I'm gonna start with it's probably at the top, and we'll get to why. But let's not forget. I think if you go back to the Kicks Cosmos game against the Beckenbauer play era 9-2 playoff game, ironically they went to New York and lost the next game. And then there was a mini game after that they lost. So their best of three series, they actually had that back in the late 70s. It was just that the mini game was the series in New York. That's got to be up there. 46,000 people were at the old Met Stadium. For audiences of the 80s, there was a couple Strikers Soccer's indoor series that went to shootouts that were really amazing. Game 7 series, kind of like the hockey era of indoor. I'd put Thunder home 99 winning the championship up there. And I think the era of my coaching, some of our big ones were on the road where we had our comebacks, but I do love the dominating games early in the playoffs and the breaking of the barriers and the connection of the players and the Wonderwall were really special. So for me, from a Minnesota standpoint, I think this had everything and then some. It wasn't just a dominating performance or a 2-0 win or, a great special night because we won. It was special because of how badly it went to start and how quiet that stadium went multiple times in the first half, where it was started with hope of winning a game against a really good team, and then hope went away, and then hope came back, and then hope went away, and then chaos ensued in the second half. So before we get to that game, I just think from a Minnesota live sporting experience, it's one of those moments where you are now not only in the soccer sphere talking about it, I think you're talking about a Minnesota folklore history sphere of all live sports. I think it's a top 5 live sporting event. I think Cal's right. I think this is one of those games where a lot of people get to talk about that they were at it, like at 87 or 91, these Game 7 Twins moments, a couple Vikings moments getting to Super Bowls, a couple Game 7 Timberwolves, advancing to either Western Conference Finals in the playoffs. So it really is that special in my eyes. From a MLS perspective, ironically, I get to say that I feel like I was involved in some really special playoff moments. It's right up there with what I consider the greatest playoff game of all time. I got to participate. We were down 4-0, 10 minutes in aggregate to LAFC or LA Galaxy. When I was with the San Jose Earthquakes, we went on to win 5-4, 5 unanswered goals, and then that team went on to win the MLS Cup. So to Cal's point, the relevancy of this night probably even gets bigger based on the run we make over the next couple of playoff series. As this had been in the conference finals to go to the MLS Cup, it would have been lights out through the roof. The reality is the only thing that knocks it down just a little bit, I think, is that it still was the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Going back to your point of just kind of overall Minnesota folklore, I've had people reach out that know my affiliation with the club and what I do on the radio broadcast and the podcast. And they don't normally talk Minnesota United with me, but they're just like, what the heck happened on Saturday? And I've had to explain it to them. And they're like, that sounds amazing. And just like telling them.
By the way, we got Cal on, which is so appropriate. Like him and Kendra calling the game, the journey and the growth into Allianz Field and the growth of creating that culture. And you've got Cal and Kendra, part of this organization, calling this iconic special moment against Seattle. Like there's so many storylines here. I mean, let's think about Seattle, this team that confounded us and really hit us hard up until this year where we kind of finally figured them out. And then it had to be Seattle in the playoffs for us to get through it. It had to be the craziest, unpredictable game ever to make it happen. I mean, yeah, that's why it's still surreal. And that's why I'm so excited to have Cal on. I mean, he got to call, I think, one of the most special moments in Minnesota United history.
Yeah, it was an incredible.
All of our special moments, basically. Yeah,
he's been up there with them. Let's jump into this match. Let's go from the start all the way to the end and the penalty kicks. So let's start off right where Cal, you mentioned, and Manny, you mentioned the stadium going incredibly quiet in the first 8 minutes. 2 goals just right out the gates from Seattle. Loons down 2-0, essentially in the blink of an eye. Not the start that you would want, Manny. And it felt like some really bad vibes really early on. And it kind of sucked the energy out of the building with those 2 early goals by Rusnak and Musovski. Yeah,
I think you start with there's a brilliant kind of goal and movement by Rusnak, the dummy, and then open up his body and get the ball back in space. And a great finish, that Dane couldn't quite get his feet. Yeah. Like it was that good technically how he finished. I think as a Minnesota United fan, I was very disappointed and frustrated with the sluggish defending, not of the passing sequence, but just the reality is the space was tight on the other side of the field. That's where most of the players were. It wasn't a fast switching of the ball to the other side. I felt like we were a little sluggish to shift over and get our defensive shape. Maybe we were not predicting Nuhu to have such a good penetrating pass. You could really pick in a fair way that we should have been sliding faster and we should have been able to block off that penetrating pass. I think that's where the danger happened. And, that's disappointing and frustrating in a big game that we started out that way. It led to the drama of how we had to fight back. But certainly I thought there was a brilliant goal by Seattle, not characteristic defensively shaped by Minnesota, especially 4 minutes into a game.
Yeah, and then you get the answer or the response from them 3 minutes later to go up 2-0. But then just 9 minutes later, Cal, probably one of the best free kicks that we've seen at Allianz Field. Joaquin Pereira says it probably was one of the best free kicks of his life. Just curling it up over the wall away from Stephen Fry right into the corner of the net. Just a beautiful free kick to get Minnesota back into the match.
I'm not the soccer guy. I mean, I'm sorry. I am the soccer guy, and I probably should know this. The pass, the player was in an offside position, but was it because the cross was square and back that it didn't?
Masovsky?
Yeah.
I think because Duggan attempted to play it, that's why it wasn't
still
called.
In an offside position at the start. I know. I don't understand the rule, and I should be the one.
From what I've understood,
Cal, do you know this? Do you have this down in your?
Look, the rules are changing in what feels every single solitary second, right? So, I mean, to my understanding, he's not offside because, as Jonathan says, Duggan makes a play on the ball, so then it moves on to another phase. But I've not watched the game back yet, chaps, because I don't. When they're like that, I tend to not watch them back because I'll just sit there and self-critique and all this kind of stuff, and which is good every so often, but too much can put you in a situation you don't want to be in. But I just remember, from what I remember, when the ball came in, I'm not entirely sure Masovsky is in an offside position. I can't. It might have been Duggan that was.
He is. That's all right.
Okay.
He was offside.
Okay.
But, that's okay. I mean, but the reality is the ball was played backwards, and Dugan did whiff on it, maybe touched it. So I still don't understand why it's not. The player was offsides and the ball was kicked.
Sure. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Manny. Because that was the interpretation explained to us in what feels like in the not too distant past. But now, to my understanding, is because that now counts as a second phase once Duggan has swiped and obviously missed the contact. So he's no longer offside, which is an interpretation and an amendment that I completely and utterly disagree with. But it just is what it is nowadays. And
and by the way, at the end of the day, it was a honest, kind of mistake that led to a goal.
Look, yeah, exactly. I mean, we can look and try and sort of make excuses and what have you, but the simple fact of the matter is that Duggan should clear the ball away, and he will know that. I'm sure you chaps know better than I do, but he knows that we shouldn't even be having the offside conversation because the clearance should be made.
Yeah, and you could see it on his body language immediately. Just drops to his knees and puts his head in the grass and just wants to hide from the 19,000 people there at Allianz Field. That he should have cleared that out.
Yeah, and what I will say, Johnny, is great credit to him, because then I thought he was great after that. I thought he really, really rose to the occasion, because there are plenty that would have sunk and wouldn't have been able to swim in that situation. So well done to him. But going back to the moment that you were originally talking about, the free kick from Pereira, I did the second game between Seattle and Minnesota at Lumen Field, and I thought Pereira was as disappointing and as absent a player that has a reputation like he does as I've ever seen in a big game. I was really, really disappointed. And so Eric Ramsey mentioned this to us in the conversation that we had leading into the game, that he thought that both Pereira and Robin Lod heading into game 2 would have been disappointed with their showing in that first game. Robin Lod, obviously, in the second game, scored a goal and gave a very good account of himself, as he has done for many.
And an assist as well, Cal. Goal and assist.
Exactly. So he obviously righted whatever the wrongs were. In my opinion, Pereira, just with that moment in itself, pushed all the negative opinions aside in that moment. I didn't think he was spectacular throughout the majority of the rest of the game, but sometimes, and Manny will know this better than most, sometimes that doesn't matter. If you've scored a goal of that magnitude and you've given your team half a chance, which he did, you've essentially done your job for the night for the most part. And look, for me, The free kick was almost picturesque, actually. There's a wonderful angle that the video team at Minnesota United caught impeccably well of him scoring the free kick and the Wonderwaller behind it, behind the goal, obviously. And it's very picturesque, I think is the right word. And he struck it so well. It went up and down very quickly, plenty of pace behind it. I thought it was great. And at that point, you started to think, okay, maybe there's something in this game, because you're right, Johnny, that the energy and the atmosphere was sucked out of the game when Seattle got the second goal. And I'll be honest, as now a neutral commentator, I thought it was done. Even though it was early, I just thought, I can't see Minnesota finding a way back into this, because Yeboah was coming into the game not fit whatsoever. But I totally understand why Ramsey started him. And I just couldn't see where the goals were going to come from. That was me being incredibly naive, having not seen Minnesota United for a while. And so Pereira popped up with a remarkable free kick, and off we went.
Yeah, I think the goal itself, the free kick, was just such class. It really was. I mean, I would say, Cal, there was another free kick. I think it was the Leagues Cup, Jonathan, right? That Pereira had one where I was like, whoa. I mean, he really has that in his wheelhouse. And you obviously don't follow us, but no, it's been a real month of Joaquin not quite in making an impact in games, both home and away. And let's hope this free kick, because you're right, I don't think he was very sharp over the whole 90 minutes of the game. But let's hope this free kick gets him hungry about the momentous task we have in San Diego in 10 days. But what I would say, the funny thing about the free kick was it brought us back in, but our crowd cheered, but we also were like, we're still not sure. Like it was like a little bit of both. The most important thing for me in terms of thinking about the future is I didn't think Kelvin was very sharp. He's still trying to get fit. He did draw the foul. He did create a little bit of chaos up there that started to allow us to maybe shift the momentum of Seattle just countering and numbers going forward. So I think there was a moment where Kelvin played a role really of trying to get us realigned offensively. He's a true number 9. He was in spaces that created some chaos in that first half. Obviously, we'll get to the red card a little bit before the red card happened. So, but the free kick was so important. To your point, before that, it was going to be interesting to see how goals were going to come from. Once that went in, it's game on. They can come from a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and you felt like from someone who's watched this team throughout the course of the year and watched this team develop, and Manny, we've talked about this so many times, the adversity and the resilience of this squad. Once that goal went in from Pereira, you just felt like all of a sudden this game, it still feels like you're still behind the 8 ball, obviously score wise, and it's a tough task a tough mountain to climb with a Seattle team that's very good and generally goes on a little bit further in the playoffs. So this is a playoff experienced team, but you just felt like with that goal, all of a sudden the tide turned for Minnesota. And this was a Seattle side that had seen themselves go up 3-0 in the previous game on Monday night and give up 2 late goals in the first half. And I don't know how they were feeling, but it looked like to me that there was starting to be a little bit of nerves from them. Like, man, this Minnesota team just does not go away no matter what we do. If we score 2 goals in the first 8 minutes, if we score 3 goals in the first 41 minutes, you cannot put this Loons team away. And Minnesota just wouldn't go away. But that eventually led us to, as you guys have talked about, the red card. Josef Rosales headbutts Jesus Ferreira. Whether you want to talk about whether he comes into contact with him or not, you still can't do it. It's still a really poor thing to do from Rosales, but that certainly changed the tone of the game. And I think maybe more so than the Pereira goal, it got the crowd into it. The crowd started to really just come alive at that point. You could feel the Loons, the players on the field, kind of feed off that energy, Manny.
Yeah, I mean, if I put on my just macro hat of the league and the ridiculous of undiscipline of our first half, both the first 10 minutes of our kind of defensive issues, and then the undiscipline of Joe, just really frustrating because you get back in the game and you're trying to get some hope and momentum going, whether it's to end the first half and get ready for how you're going to navigate the second half. Just really disappointing. Like it really took another, like the wind out of the sails, and we had to fight to get to halftime to kind of figure out what are we going to do. I will say I put a little bit on the refereeing, not Joe. He deserves a red card if he does that. I just thought some early calls allowed players to start to kind of deceive the referee a little bit to create the drama. And I sometimes like to tell our audience that refereeing is so important in soccer. By getting calls right, even if they're little ones, things build up. If players know they can get referees emotionally drawn into moments, they will create those moments usually. The reality is Joe allowed the moment to happen. I don't even really go after Ferreira, even though I think he really made a meal of it. But when every little play matters, every little moment, a player is going to do that to get an advantage. And ultimately, Joe kind of has to put his hand up and say, how do I get better at that? How I use my emotions for the good of the team, as opposed to emotionally using it for my own individual kind of outlet.
Yeah, and obviously not the way you want to end the first half, Cal. Going down a man, you're still down a goal. But I think the thing that we talked about a little bit ago is that this team felt resilient. And I don't know what your feelings were going into the second half, but just down a goal, it still felt like, even though you were down a man, the most important thing that we talked about with Zarek Valentine on the call at halftime, he joins us right out of the locker room. He said the most important thing, Cal, don't allow a goal. Keep yourself in this one. And that's what the Loons did. And they stayed resilient in the second half. And it was the second half substitutes that really made a difference for Minnesota. We'll talk about Markanic's goal in a little bit, but center back to center back to center back, Cal. I don't imagine we've seen many of those in the history of Major League Soccer, but Michael Boxall, Morris Duggan, and Jefferson Diaz combining the three center backs from Minnesota on the equalizing goal in the 62nd minute. Jefferson Diaz's first goal for the club, and what a time to score it.
Yeah, great time to score it, wasn't it? Really, really good time. Because I'll be totally honest, Jonathan, at halftime, after the red card, if you weren't convinced that it was done then,
I think it was fair to think that then.
Yeah, I certainly did. And I didn't want to think that, but I thought it was done. I really did. Silly boy, Joseph Rosales. I hope he learns from that, because that is not the time. You should never do that on a football pitch, but certainly in the biggest game of the season, control your emotions. Not the time or place to put your team in the pickle that he did. And so I hope he learns from that for sure. But look, the goal to get Minnesota back into it really, really restored energy and belief and hope. And there was a real element of maybe they can do this and get themselves back into it against all the odds, because all the odds were stacked against them. We have a thing that we do on the Apple broadcast, and it's called the win probability. And we had done it coming back in, I think, about the 50th minute or so, just before the goal. And Seattle had something along the lines of, I think it was 93% was the percentage they were given in terms of the chance for them to advance, which I totally understood, because everything was in their favour. And so, yeah, the long throws from Boxall have become something, haven't they, this year? It's really turned into something. And so the fact that Minnesota had scored so many goals from set pieces, and they treat these long throws like set pieces for obvious reasons, there just seems to be a comfortability with it. There seems to be people and players understanding what their roles are with these long throws, and for Diaz to clip around the back and score it the way he did was great. But also credit to Duggan for getting amongst the mix and providing the assist. You know, like I said, when he made the initial mistake for the Sounders' second goal, you could have very easily seen a situation where he would have crumbled and wouldn't have been able to participate in any way or shape or form. You know, we've seen plenty of players that have not been able to give their all after making a mistake like that, especially at that time of the game as well. So credit for him to make the assist, and Diaz's movement at the back post was great. And like you said, great time to score your first goal for the football club. I've heard Allianz loud before, but it really got loud at that point. And I thought at that moment it was the loudest that I ever heard it, until just a few minutes later.
Just 9 minutes later, Anthony Markanic, as he's done all season, and I've gone back and looked at this goal a couple times now, and I still have no idea, Manny, how Anthony Marcanic gets that wide open on the far post, just uncovered. Rusnak was covering him to start the corner kick, and just lets him go, just lets him run free, and Marcanic just finds his spot at the back post. A wonderful corner kick from Pereira, just to put it curling right back to the far post, where if Marcanic doesn't get it, it's going out for a goal kick. And Marcanic's just there to blast it in the back of the net. Marcanic, once again, just a hero for this club and having a wonderful, wonderful season. Manny.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go back to the goal, because I think there is probably some important tactical nuances about why Anthony was open. But what I'd start with, for me, a little bit about the post-red card, getting to halftime. The margins to win these games are so thin, and they become thinner when now you're down a man. And I really want to highlight the staff and deciding how to manage being down a man and try to make sure they stay in the game, and then allowing a chance to believe that they can tie it or win it. And a couple big things for me. The first one is Eric didn't make any changes at halftime. So he's basically saying, all right, group, I want you to get to, a certain couple of minutes where we don't concede, and maybe we score, but we don't concede, and we keep going. And there was a big moment, obviously, with Christian Roldan, who is a brilliant player, finds ways to get the end line. His cutback passes this series have killed us. Absolutely. He's unbelievable at finding space deep, finding the player. Obviously, I'm alluding to the Rusnak moment. It was a big moment for a couple reasons. One, because obviously if they go up 3-1 up a man, that's a really big mountain to climb. Two, I think it allowed Eric to really manage the second half now in the way that subs are important. So I have three things that are really important right now in a lot of games. Red cards obviously change games. Goals change games. Subs change games. This game had all three that were incredibly important. And in a weird way, after the Rusnak miss, Eric was allowed to now sub out a player and try to manage the game in the second half and how the team was going to try to get back into it. And he put Anthony in at that moment. He pulled Kelvin.
Yeah.
What he had not done a lot this year, but there had been years and times in the past where Minnesota United does. Instead of doing Bongi up top, which is maybe kind of the idea of an athletic, and kind of we tried that in Seattle, he chose Lode to go up top and have Bongi be a two-way wing back, which manages defensively and can get forward. And I think that flipped everything. I think that gave our team an opportunity to say, you know what? Kelvin had a good, I don't want to say a good shift. He put a shift in and he's getting there, and it was good to have a 9, but he wasn't very sharp. And I think our level actually raised. Mm-hmm. And I think at that moment when our level raised, we showed Seattle something that I think Seattle's not used to, which is the pressure turned and it was on them now.
Yeah.
We started to play some good soccer, and they were up a man, and they were supposed to see this game out and start scoring and being up 2-3, 4-1 right away. And so for me, I just wanted to highlight how good I thought the game was managed. And I think it started with the Anthony sub and Lode going up top. And then I just loved the tying goal because the redemption came from 3 defenders that had the awful 10 minutes. It came from Boxall with an amazing cross, Dugan with amazing flick, and Diaz with an amazing time to run and finish. So that to me was everything flipped now, where Seattle now officially is like, the stress is on them. You just feel it. And red cards sometimes change the game the opposite, where the other team's just like, I'm going to pound you guys. I'm going to hurt you. That was no longer it. Right at that moment, Seattle's like, oh my gosh, Minnesota might Seattle essentially, in terms of like, we felt the pressure. And then I thought from that moment on, I did feel like we were going to score again. I know that sounds crazy, but I thought we were the team that's going to score, because I just saw Seattle's faces drop. They started not solving problems. We started winning 50-50 battles. We started like being the ones creating chances. And then just for the Marcanic goal, he is amazing. Like his timing, his understanding of where to go, why he's going there. I think clearly you could probably guess Seattle was unorganized in terms of him coming on the field, and how Kelvin went off and Lode went there. And then if you see it, he starts way at the top of the box and he's like, I don't think anybody's marking me. He goes,
Yeah.
and like for what the season he's had, that's just insane. I think every team, from now on through the playoffs will have somebody really good always on him. And you just see him sneakily be like, holy shit, nobody's on me. And again, there's only a few players in the league that have his timing right now and belief to get to spots to head it. And the ball was perfect by Pereira. So I just think that's probably, it was a huge mistake by Seattle. A little dysfunctional based on the scenarios they had, the sub coming in, responsibilities they didn't quite understand and get the message from the bench to their players to have a guy on.
Yeah, just incredible timing from Loons. And I forgot to mention this on the equalizing goal. Minnesota, as you said, Cal, have become specialists at the long throw. They didn't go the long throw at that point. They short throw by Michael Boxall to get the ball into play right away. And that certainly threw Seattle for a loop, because Seattle, all credit to them this entire series, they've done a really good job of defending those long throws and the set pieces in general from Minnesota. And it was just kind of a change of things for Minnesota in that short throw by Michael Boxall into Pereira, and then getting the ball back, obviously, before the cross, kind of changed things for Minnesota and set up that second goal. And then the third goal from Marcanic really changes the tone, and all of a sudden, Seattle, as we've been talking about, the pressure mounts on them even more. They were up a man for 50 minutes of this match. They had the goal advantage going into halftime, and all of a sudden they're looking.
How about that noise, by the way, when the third goal?
Oh my goodness, incredible! One of the most incredible pops that I've heard at all Anfield, and then you have an even bigger pop later on, which we'll get to in a second. But Minnesota now staring at a final 20 minutes of the match with the goal advantage. Now you have now you just get to play defense, and you played defense well all season long. Unfortunately, just an incredible touch by Christian Roldan into the path of Jordan Morris for the equalizer in the 88th minute. Just one of the finest touches you'll see all season long, Cal, for that equalizing goal that set up a penalty kicks for Minnesota and Seattle. And you could sense there was a little bit of angst for Seattle, knowing what was coming, what Dane St. Clair is able to do in those moments. Seattle themselves obviously changed goalkeepers, bringing Andrew Thomas on for Stephen Fry, who in his career hasn't been great at penalty kicks. And that was a talking point going into the third game, that if they're going to penalties, Seattle fans would be losing their minds if Stephen Fry was still in net. And Brian Schmetzer makes a change, brings Andrew Thomas on, and that certainly set up for a very, very intriguing penalty kicks, Cal.
Yeah, we were made aware, actually, that if it was going to go to penalties, Andrew Thomas was going to come on. And as you mentioned before, Stephen Fry doesn't have a particularly great record on penalty kicks. He's a flawless record in Major League Soccer. But when it comes to penalty kicks, I think it's safe to say Andrew Thomas is the preferred choice. But it was so unbelievably tense after the goal that Marcanic scored, and as you mentioned, that the place erupted. The atmosphere was incredible. I just always assumed that the Sounders would find a way back into it, just because it's what they do. They've done this for years, Yes. They are just almost like a modern day villain in the world of Major League Soccer, aren't they? That they've just had this knack of finding a way over the course of years of being involved in the league, and even back in the day in the NASL and what have you. So I wasn't surprised that they got themselves back in it, because let's be honest, they had a number of chances throughout the game where Dane St. Clair had to make some saves. They hit the woodwork on a couple of occasions as well. And so I was never in a doubt in my mind that I thought the Sounders would at least have a big opportunity. And Jordan Morris with the goal, unsurprisingly, I think that was his 11th playoff goal in his career. He's just very seldom has Jordan Morris not turned up on the big occasions for Seattle Sounders. And he did so once again, obviously. And so heading into the penalties was a bizarre feeling, because I as you sort of insinuated there, Seattle Sounders going into the game did not want penalty kicks. But at the point where they scored, they'd have bitten your hand off for it. But going into it, there was this sort of overriding feeling, I thought, in the stadium that nobody wanted this. We want to get a victory. We don't want to have to go through this emotional roller coaster again. And yet here we are. It was fitting that, unsurprisingly, the penalty shootout took place in front of the Wonderwall. And obviously it didn't get off to the greatest of starts. Pereira missed. He didn't even hit the target.
Yeah.
But then there was a moment of confusion and intrigue, because there was a moment where I thought, because Andrew Thomas was clutching his wrist and his hand, there was a moment where I thought they're going to have to put, to my understanding, Alex Roldan in goal here for this.
Who was playing with a bit of a hip injury, wasn't he?
Right. And so Alex Roldan, I guess, was the option that has done this before, has gone in goal for Seattle, but not in penalty kicks, to my understanding. And so I thought for a moment that would be the reality of the situation. I still am not entirely sure what happened to Andrew Thomas. I think there were one or two suggestions that he might have fractured a finger or something. But I still don't know. I have no confirmation on that, so I'd rather not speculate, I guess. But it looked as if he was in a bit of trouble. And there was one penalty, I think it was the Triantis penalty afterwards, where I actually think if he doesn't hurt his hand or whatever he's done with it, I actually think he saves the penalty. But he wasn't able to push it away enough, and it trickles past him. But the simple fact of the matter is that it didn't start in a positive manner for Minnesota, with Pereira missing, Rusnak then scoring, and it kind of led to the next what felt like an eternity of uncertainty then, because there were so many penalties that were missed. There were so many opportunities that weren't taken, to the point, Jonathan, where I was like, at what point is someone going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck? Because when Minnesota missed 2 penalties, Seattle missed 2 penalties, at one point, I've never seen 4 penalties in a row being missed before. And so it just added to the drama and the suspense, which was wonderful. But at one point I was thinking, we're going to have to go around again, because no one's taking advantage of this whatsoever.
Finlies is a mission-driven pet brand redefining what it means to do business with purpose. Founded in 2016 by 2 former special education teachers, Finlies was created to address the staggering unemployment rate among individuals with disabilities, a community too often left out of the workforce. Every purchase of Finlies products supports real, paid job opportunities and community development for people with disabilities through the company's inclusive employment initiatives. From job coaching to community engagement, Finlies is creating a future where everyone has a seat at the table and a chance to thrive. Follow Finlies on Instagram @GetFinlies. Yeah, you get Pereira missing the first one. You get the Andrew Thomas drama with the injury. Rusnak makes it. Then Triantis, as you said, steps up right immediately after Pereira and kind of drills it in. And Andrew Thomas, to his credit, gets the on the end of it. And that was the question that Cal and I had on that Dan and I had on the broadcast, was how much does that injury that he just suffered play into the fact that the ball, he gets all of his hands on that ball, just it slips right past him because Triantis just blasts it right into the net. And then you get 8 makes in a row by a bunch of Minnesota and Seattle players, and then 4 misses in a row by Marcanic, Vargas, Dotson, De Rosario. And then it's Longwane who steps up, and knowing and seeing kind of how things have played out in penalty kicks in the past, no offense to Bongi, I wasn't too confident because he doesn't generally step up for penalties for the Loons. And he slides it right past, and that felt like it really changed things for Minnesota. It felt like that was the moment where they started to take this game a little bit by the scruff of the neck, as you said, Cal. Then Alex Roldan steps up, and then it's Dane St. Clair, Manny. I don't know how many times in your career you've seen goalkeepers, the penalties get to goalkeepers. I've seen it as a fan from other teams and other games that we've watched as a neutral, or as maybe one of my teams that I cheer for across the pond get to penalties, but I don't remember many times in this league anyways, penalties getting to goalkeepers. And Dane St. Clair steps up, and all of a sudden the drama ratchets up even more so than it already was, Manny.
Yeah, I felt like the PKs were a microcosm of the 90 minutes, like where the emotion springs were just that drastic. Getting down 2-0, a lot of goals, a lot of red cards. Like, Seattle's definitely going to win this. Now Minnesota's come back. Now Minnesota has the lead. Now Seattle's got 2 PKs to win it, and they missed both of them. And now Minnesota's got the kind of energy. And I think you guys are spot on. I think the goalkeeping sub was probably the right move by Seattle. The injury really played a part. I do think it took him a couple PKs in the triathlon to realize that he could still be brave and make saves with a broken finger or dislocated fingers, which he started to do. I thought his save against Asani was pretty good. And I think the Anthony one was a little bit easier. I think Anthony gave that at a height where, but you could see he's a good PK taker. So now you have two.
Yeah, he was guessing. He was going right pretty much the entire time.
PKs. Yep. And I always count the misses as saves. You know that. Mm-hmm. And Cal, one of the coolest things is Jonathan and I did a show live for Brits about 10 days ago with Dane. And it was so fascinating to hear Dane go through his routine. And it is unbelievable, not trash talking to be just like, I want to try, but to like try to get in the guy's head, slow down how long it takes to make it. The referee then says, you can't talk to the player anymore. So then he goes and he talks to the referee. He says, hey, if he misses this, we win, right? If he misses this in front of the guy, like it's just the amount of preparation of how Dane thinks about how he's going to go into making sure he knows information on each guy. And then within the moment, I was really impressed. Like it was not just like off the cuff. He really has a plan when he goes into these moments about how he wants to get under the skin of every single shooter.
Manny, I don't really want to like say this to like pat myself on the back, but do you remember the last question I asked him in that broadcast?
I do not. Apologies.
I asked him, had he ever taken a penalty?
Oh, that's right. It's amazing. He said like when he was 12 or something, maybe?
Yeah, he'd never done it in like high school or college or the professional ranks, but obviously steps up and does a little bit of...
step up, but the hesitation penalty is... It can go badly if you're not used to it because you could panic and then just really. And so I think us behind the scenes, giving a little of kind of insight, everybody was shocked that that's the PK he chose. Most time goalies like to show off how well and hard they can kick the ball.
Well, we saw that with Andrew Thomas's, yeah.
Exactly. And Dane put together a little Kelvin Yeboah-esque.
Yeah, just does the little stutter, but then as you said, Manny, Andrew Thomas steps up and just kind of leaves both feet as he kicks it and just pings it off the crossbar. And we've talked about some of the loud noises at Allianz Field already in this broadcast. I don't think there was any louder or there will be any louder at Allianz Field than what we heard when that ball went off the crossbar. Callum, that was just an incredible noise, an incredible fitting end to this series that just couldn't find a way. Neither team could really find a way to separate themselves in this series, in this first round series, until Andrew Thomas just blasted off the crossbar, Cal.
It was always going to take something extraordinary to separate the two teams. And a second choice goalkeeper hitting the woodwork in the 10th round of penalty kicks is just an example of what it would take, right? And I honestly, in terms of entertainment, as we sort of mentioned earlier on, it has to be up there in terms of some of the best action we've seen at Allianz Field for sure. When the ball hit the woodwork, you mentioned the word pop, Jonathan. It was very akin to moments that I've experienced across European football, where there is the obvious understanding that this is a moment that we have waited for a long, long time. And I remember as it was clear Minnesota had won and we were sort of finishing thoughts and whatnot, I do remember sort of having a conversation with Kendra on air about this is, for moments like this is why this stadium was built. This is why the fan base have been so loyal. This is why people care so much, because of moments like this, because of nights like this. Allianz Field was absolutely built for that moment, and hopefully many more to come, right? But there was something very, very special in the air after that, because at one point, Minnesota United and Minnesota soccer fans in general were not even sure they were going to have a team at some points. And yet here we are in 2025, Minnesota beating one of the all-time great franchises across American sports. If you look at their playoff record, you look at what they've won and their history in the game, not just in Major League Soccer, but across the entirety of the many different iterations and leagues we've had. Seattle Sounders will go down as one of the great franchises. For Minnesota to beat them amongst the drama, amongst the chaos, it really highlighted, I thought, a coming together of what it all means for football fans in Minnesota. The fans deserve moments like that. The fans deserve entertainment and celebratory moments like that. And there was just something very, very special in the air afterwards. The singing of Wonderwall is always so immaculate. But it felt as though people were singing it just a little bit harder and louder afterwards, because it just felt as though that meant so much. I was so happy for so many people at the football club, people that have worked tirelessly, people like Manny, people like yourself, Jonathan, that does so much on the broadcasting side of it. This football club is so special. It means so much to so many people and deserves moments like.
Yeah, Cal, I would throw in there too our ownership group, which I connect with the fans. I think they're one and the same in a weird way, because I think the owners felt like this was something for the fans. I felt like this was something that Minnesota deserved to be part of this beautiful global game. You articulated that so well. Unbelievable. Like, it really was. And you're right. The Wonderwall was extra special. I think there was a lot more energy into it. Hey, Jonathan, real quick, one thing, and it's hard to pull back from what Cal just said because that was articulated so well. I just want our fans to know about the PKs and why it lined up that Dane and
Andrew Thomas, yeah.
Yes, we're shooting at Chris Roldan got pulled. So what happens when there's a red card?
Yeah.
The team that
I didn't know this during the broadcast, so I was wondering, yes, if you go back and listen to the broadcast, you can hear me both goalkeepers
sideline. So now it's 10v10.
Yeah.
So the advantage is a little bit for the team with the red card, but not really. I mean, at the end of the day, usually you don't think it goes to 10 in PKs, but that is why it lined up where the goalies had to go at the same time. Is because when the PKs started, Roldan got pulled. It was 10 Minnesota United players, 10 Seattle players.
Yeah, and that makes sense. There's a point, and I put this clip out because I have a GoPro camera in the booth watching us, because I tend to be just like a maniac during these broadcasts.
It's one of my favorite things. Cal, I don't know if you go into Twitter world. I don't really. My wife sent me stuff, but she sent me images of Jonathan going nuts in the booth.
There's a moment.
It was great, wasn't it? It was great. I only saw it the other day, and it was great seeing both Jonathan and Dan, who by the way had a tremendous commentary from all the clips that I've listened to. Just great again, just such a big part of the football club, and was great to see. So it was just an immaculate night, wasn't it? And as I said, just one that we're just not going to forget for a very long time.
There's a moment in that clip where, I guess there's two moments in that clip, after Andrew Thomas misses, where you see both of us at different points take our headsets off. Dan's kind of just shakes his head, kind of just trying to get the sound out of his ears, because it was just one of the craziest moments he's ever called. And then there's a moment where I just pull my headset off because the stadium is loud. We hear it through our headsets. I just wanted to hear it in person, not through the headset, not through a microphone, just have it, take it in. And just it was one of those special moments, one of those, as you said, Cal, I was there moments, just an incredible moment for Minnesota United and the club. Now they move on. They'll take on San Diego. This is the part of the show where we now look across the rest of the league, and there's plenty to discuss here. A bunch of game threes, starting off with New York City FC getting a 3-1 win at Charlotte. Some incredible goals in that one. In their game three, they move on, and I think that maybe surprised a lot of people that New York City are moving on to the Eastern Conference semifinals. Then you have Cincinnati defeating Columbus 2-1, Miami beating Nashville 4-0, and then San Diego beating Portland 4-0. Cal, which one of those results stuck out the most to you from the game threes at the weekend?
I am going to say the New York City FC victory against Charlotte, because I did game one between those two teams, and New York City just looked like they had their number. They just looked like they understood how to get the better of Charlotte, for sure. And obviously Charlotte went to New York City then and got the win on penalties. But Alonso Martinez is a pest. He's just such a great centre forward. The goal that he scored in game one reiterated that point.
That was such class.
For the listener that hasn't potentially seen it, he picks the ball up almost midway through the Charlotte half, and just head down, dribbles past, almost Messi-esque, about 5 or 6 Charlotte players, puts the ball around, I forget who the centre half was, maybe it was Privet Malonga, I can't remember, goes around the other way and just slots it past Kalina. It's just very, very good. It's very easy on the eye. And so that one was interesting for me, Jonathan. I was not surprised, really, that San Diego got the better of Portland. I was surprised that Portland got it to game 3, if I'm being totally honest. I think San Diego are just much stronger than them. But the one that stands out for me, was that game for New York City. To go to Charlotte, not many teams have gone to Charlotte and found victory this year, but there is something about that Dean Smith side that when they do crumble, they do crumble. I remember doing a game there earlier this year where Chicago Fire beat them. I think it was 3-0. It might have even been 4. And they just imploded, Charlotte did. And so I feel like they're one of these teams that if you score a goal or two and their heads drop, you can get some numbers on them. And so I think New York City FC obviously found a way to psychologically get the better of them. And I think we're all surprised New York City FC are in this position because Pascal Janssen has done a good job. I don't think any of us thought, given the fact that they missed the playoffs 2 years ago and Nick Cushing kind of got them going again last year before being dismissed. I don't think anybody had any major expectations for them this year. Just getting to the playoffs would be good. And that looked dicey for them for a little while. So surprise for sure. But now they have they have, which I'm sure we'll get to, a monumental task going up against I think my favourites, Philadelphia Union, in the conference semi-finals, because Philly are flying. Philly, for me, are tremendous. And so that's a big task for New York City.
Yeah, New York City, the only lower-seeded team to win their first-round series and move on. Everywhere else, it was... By
the way, guys, we have to, not you, Cal, you have to be neutral, but we have to be cheering for NYCFC. Minnesota United makes a run. We host, it's the only team we have a chance to actually host an MLS Cup still. So,
and who wouldn't want to host an MLS Cup at Allianz Field in the early weeks of December? Come on.
Can you imagine?
Perfect. But I will say to Cal, to your point, like, it's another reminder how amazing and little things matter. That moment where Zaha had his Joseph Rosales moment,
right,
didn't allow Charlotte to go into their playoffs with the advantage they really want. Home field, there's real starting 11, getting off the front foot against NYCFC. And I thought it was a great series. I thought NYCFC weathered that first 20 or 30 minutes. And when Charlotte didn't score, I think they said, yeah, we can take these guys. They really did a good job. So it's, there's you never know for Minnesota fans that on that side of the bracket, NYCFC has done it before, all the way into Portland to get their MLS Cup years ago. So I thought the Miami game was impressive because unlike last year, it seemed like they've learned the lessons of how awesome and ready you have to be in playoffs. And I thought they were very sharp in their game 3 against Nashville. They really didn't allow Nashville a sniff. The hell is real, Jonathan, your favorite, amazing. I mean, I just think it was an amazing round of playoffs. It's another example and there's criticism the league should take. There's criticism that's hard, but when you tear away the reality of playoffs in this country and what it does, I think they're amazing.
Absolutely.
Really do. Great drama.
Yeah.
And really, you have to be a great team during the regular season and playoffs to prove that you're best in the league.
You mentioned the Hell is Real game, and that leads us to the end of Darlington Nagbe's professional career, and what a career he's had. One of the best players in this league's history, Cal. Just an incredible career he's had, and it'll be sad to not see him in the league next year for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, somebody that I don't know how Columbus Crew are going to replace. I don't know where they go. Dylan Shambo is very, very good, but to replace somebody that has the precision that Darlington Nagbe does. I did a Columbus Crew game recently. Well, I did the Hell is Real derby, the first game, and Darlington Nagbe's passing accuracy, I think, was something ridiculous, like 96% or something. He is somebody that's going to be very difficult to replace. Wherever he's gone, he's had success. Wherever he's gone, he's won. I think it's 4 times he's won MLS Cup. For me, criminal that he didn't get the caps that he should have done with the US national team. But that central midfield is just such a difficult barrier to break. At the time, you think about when he was really in his prime, it was Michael Bradley in the centre of that midfield, and then Tyler Adams emerged.
Now, by the way, I think that the arc of his career, people miscast him. People wanted to pigeonhole as a 10 because he was so skilled and so technical. You're like, get him higher up the field. You know, he'll create. That was not his DNA. His DNA was running the tempo of a game
back, yeah,
in every pass. And so I think he is up there, probably with Landon as some of our most technically gifted players we've ever produced in this country. And there's no doubt in my mind, there's certain Americans that I think at the right time or place could have gone almost any team in the world. He's one of those players.
Yeah,
for sure.
I totally agree with that, Manny. What was it? There was one point, was it just after he left Portland? Was it there was strong interest from Celtic, and that was the talk, wasn't it? He was going to go to Celtic, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. I can't remember why.
To be honest, I don't think he really wanted to leave. Like, he wasn't hungry to ply his trade out of the game. And you never want to go anywhere if you're not hungry, because you won't do well. And I also think that was quite a little bit later to start the European journey. You know, like, I think you really want to start it when you're kind of still on the up. You don't want to go to Europe when you're kind of coming down, because you tend to not keep going up to the top team. So for me, I think that's fine. Like I said, that was his choice more than anything else. I think the mistake for the criminal of the national team is that, you know, we're still growing into valuing real positional type players. And instead we were like, well, this guy's got to be our 10. And like, they kept on trying to pigeonhole as a 10. That just was not in his DNA. He was a amazing 6/8.
Yeah, deep player.
And I think he wasn't going to produce the goals or the kind of first assists that I think people expected his level of technical ability did. So, but you're right about the Columbus thing. Morris and him now leaving, that is a lot to navigate. Cucho, obviously, too, for Columbus to kind of.
And there's the possibility that they're without Wilfred Nancy next season.
Oh, yeah.
There's the rumors, the very credible rumors out there that he is the number one choice for Celtic, their opening. So they could be undergoing wholesale changes this offseason. So it's a big offseason for Columbus. Before we go, thoughts on, Manny, from you, international window, or the U.S. men's national team playing a couple of friendlies, Paraguay and Uruguay coming up. Your thoughts on maybe what you see in the squad and what you want to see from the club over the next 2 games?
Yeah, I got 2 things. One, I felt like it's a deflated window, partly because of the MLS right now is such a focus, but also I feel like Pochettino kind of had a crescendo of the group. And I feel like he's kind of now doing another, I want to look at the guys and see how they do against really good competition types of rosters, which is fine. My energy level gets excited as we get closer to the games. I would say they're very difficult games, particularly the Uruguay game, in that, you know, I think we're fighting to grow and build a style like them in terms of the fight and hunger and just the mentality that they bring to a game. I think that'll be a tough task. I think it's in Tampa. Great to see if we can get a result in that game, though. The other one, Paraguay, it's a winnable game, you know, depending on the roster. So, yeah, I'm excited. One thing I would say about the international break, my mind is totally MNUFC. I like that we're playing Monday night. I don't always like the long break. It's nice this one to breathe a little bit. All our guys are going to be playing international break, get back that Wednesday. And 2 things. They've got 4 days to recover, which sometimes international breaks can be really hard mentally and physically before we play Monday night. And then it also means you got 4 days with Eric, having the whole group together to try to train and build, you know, both some tactical acumen as well as just integration and unity back to a team. I felt like last year we played the Galaxy. We had a really long break. Guys were dysfunctional. Guys came back, and then a day and a half later we were playing Galaxy at LA where we had to be spot on. And it was a big ask of the staff to kind of put a competitive group out there. So I will say, if the break, I think, actually helps us this time as opposed to last year. So and let's see where the USA goes. I'm bullish on just how we played the last break. I think Pochettino's starting to get the group to be a little bit more together about what it means to play for the country.
And Cal, you're actually on the radio call for one of these games. What are you looking for to seeing in this break for the U.S. men's national team?
Yeah, I'll give a little plug if that's okay, Jonathan.
Yeah.
We have the commentary on the Westwood One Sports Network, and I'll be doing the game for the US against Uruguay. And all you've got to do is ask Alexa to play Westwood One Sports, and you'll hear myself doing the commentary. And I just found out last week, alongside a former Minnesota United player, Jamie Watson, will be doing the commentary with me as well, which will be nice. I haven't seen Jamie for a little while, so that'll be nice to do that. But
another getting the band back together moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great game to call, by the way. Great test for the US. Like I said, Uruguay is they're tough.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Manny. I think it's a shame that Tyler Adams is not available. My dad actually went to Aston Villa against Bournemouth over the weekend and said he saw the injury for Adams and said it didn't look good. And so you just have to hope that he's available and ready for the next international window, because he, for me, is a big player that has not seen enough time over the course of the last couple of international windows with the US. I commentated on the US against Australia in Colorado in the last international break, and Christian Roldan was by far the standout player on that day. It's all good and well playing teams like Australia, who are going to be at the World Cup, but for me, the thing now that the US have really got to focus on is playing teams that are better than them and being more adaptable in certain situations. Obviously, we don't know at the moment what the group is going to look like for the US, but it is more than likely that there's going to be a team of a certain stature in that group. And so I think at the time, the US are going to be able to play the way they want to play against a team like Paraguay, against a team like Ecuador and what have you. But there are going to be times when the US may very well go up against a France or a Germany or a Netherlands, as we've seen in the past. You have to adapt. It's okay, the fact that you're not going to possess the ball as much. So if that's the case, how do you adapt? How do you play? And I think my concern over the course of the last couple of windows is, whilst there's a clear style now starting to be put out there, I worry that that the US haven't done it enough consistently with the same group of players, because there's been a lot of injuries, there's been players that have been absent. I think the fact that Christian Pulisic is not involved in this window is a real shame again as well, because he's the linchpin, isn't he? He's the star. And you have to find a way of getting the ball to him when you're playing these so-called bigger nations. And Uruguay would have been a really good test in terms of how to do that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the US will beat Paraguay. Uruguay are a very, very different story for sure. But no Chris Richards is a disappointment as well. I know Mauricio Pochettino voiced his disappointments about him not being allowed to leave there. But and by the way, whilst I'm talking of Chris Richards, I think everyone in Crystal Palace is talking about Mark Gay and obviously him going off when his deal expires, and he'll go to Liverpool or he'll go to Bayern Munich or something along those lines. People now will start talking about Chris Richards, because he's been absolutely first class with Crystal Palace, but because he's playing alongside an England international, that's where all the headlines have gone. But I think now over the course of the next year or so, people will see how good Chris Richards is. And I think he's a future US captain, by the way. He's very articulate the way that he talks. He has a leadership type vibe about him. People respect him. People listen to him. And so it's a shame that he's not involved in this window. But look, I think now we're getting to the point, aren't we, where it's like, this is the last window to really try people out, because at some point Pochettino has to say, this is the group. This is how we're playing. Now we've got 4 or 5 games. We've got maybe an international window or 2 ahead to really solidify the group and the style before we do this for real. And so I think that these 2 games against Paraguay and particularly Uruguay are the 2 games that it's really now or never for a handful of those players on that roster for sure.
Yeah, looking forward to this international break. US playing Paraguay 4 p.m. Saturday in Chester, PA, and then Tuesday down in Tampa, as you guys said, against Uruguay. Cal on the call for that one, 6 p.m. kickoff for that one. Listen to that on Westwood Sports. Looking forward to it. Cal, appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate the call on Saturday, and appreciate you popping in for a chat about one of the best games that we've seen at Allianz Field. Yeah,
appreciate it, chaps. It's a pleasure as always. And as I was sort of saying a little earlier on before, for some reason my internet cut off or whatever it was. Look, it's always very, very nice to come back to Minnesota. And I have to say thank you to so many people who made me feel so welcome again. So many people at the football club, but whether it was people that work at the club or fans or whatever, it was just so nice to be around. So many really genuinely lovely and warm people. It's a very, very special place. And those fans and the people that work at the club deserve moments like they had against Seattle Sounders. And so here's hoping there's many more. But it was a pleasure, and hopefully see you guys soon.
Yeah, I thought, Cal, was just awesome hearing you articulate way better than I could even come close. That's why I got chills talking about that night, because that's how it was. You articulated perfectly. So
appreciate it. Thank you, Manny.
Why the stadium was built. I like that.
Manny, good stuff. Talk to you next week. We'll preview San Diego coming up. I'm really looking forward to that game. That should set up for a really interesting battle. Team.
Enjoy the weather, chaps.
Yep. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler for putting this on every week. Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.